This is the Small Town Big Talk Show, the only place where you can listen in on real life conversations about the challenges and the joys of living in a small town. I'm your host, Rebecca Undum, and each week a guest will join me as we tackle one topic that more than likely we're all feeling or have thought about, but of course, no one wants to talk about. Let's chat. My guest on today's episode is Renee Rongen. Renee was my speaking coach. She was also the woman who helped me figure out that I even wanted to be a keynote speaker and also helped me get my book written. In this chat, Renee and I we talk all about the journey of really how I got from where I was to where I am today and her role in all of that. She has dedicated her life not only to speaking and holding space on stage herself, but helping other people to do so. And there's just nuggets of wisdom, so much wisdom that Renee shares in this chat, not just for people that are entrepreneurs or that want to become speakers, but just for people that want to live their life on purpose. So enjoy this chat with Real Deal Renee. I cannot wait to hear what y'all think. So here I am sitting with Real Deal Renee.
Here we are. How many years later? Since we didn't want to meet. I didn't want to meet you for sure. Yeah, it's more than 4.
No, at least 4.
Oh yeah, she was in utero.
So much like 5, I guess.
Yeah, 5.
Would be fair. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you didn't want to meet me, because why didn't you want to meet me?
Well, I knew enough people.
Amen.
I mean, you didn't need more. Now to say, like, in hindsight, is 2020. I didn't know you. That is not every people. Like,
don't get it twisted.
Do not get it twisted.
You knew people, but you didn't know.
I didn't know this. No, I never knew any of that. No.
You had a life pre-Rebecca.
You did. Now everything is post-Rebecca. We should have a little movie, post-Rebecca.
Right.
Pre and post.
So, This is what I thought we could talk about.
Okay.
Like we're looking at the chapter of the book a little bit earlier here.
I love the book. Let's just say that. I love the book.
Thanks, friend.
Yeah, I'm proud of you. I love that book. I love your book.
Thank you. Well, it's weird because when it's your story, you almost feel like you can't love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird thing, right?
Yeah, I remember getting my books and I wanted to burn them because I had
put
so much. I'm so over it. Like, I don't even want to see a copy in my office. I don't like.
Oh God, isn't that the truth? I've said that.
Donate them to places.
Right, and it's done, and I hate it. I hate all of it, and that's when you really have to start talking about it.
And
when
you're done with
so
it.
Over
yeah,
it.
You're so over it. You're so over it.
It's a really weird thing.
Right, I get it.
People that I tell people that if you want to write a book, just be prepared that you're gonna hate that damn thing so much by the time that you have it in your hands.
Particularly if it's about yourself.
Oh,
and yours is a memoir, so
mm-hmm.
Can't get away from you. I guess wherever you are, there you are.
It feels so pretentious. And we're still talking about me.
Oh yeah, page 333.
Yeah, still on me. We're still talking about me, but it's okay.
It's a great book.
Thank you,
great
friend. Book. Thank you. And you have a chapter. It's called Real Deal Renee.
Yeah, Real Deal Renee. I've never had a chapter before. Real Deal Renee.
You have a chapter. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk just about that chapter. So that's the chapter that's inspiring this chat.
Yeah, perfect.
So there's several things because you're a huge part of my world now, right?
Ditto.
Thanks. And I feel like maybe where we can start is the serendipity, perhaps.
Sure.
And I have a few of those moments. I feel like a lot of moments of the things that really put me on a path were when I did something more based on intuition or things just felt right.
Sure. So
it was someone else's intuition that hooked us up in the first place. Let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
And then maybe when we met, what were the things that made you kind of change your tune? Because you said you didn't need more friends. So let's start there. So when you first heard
first of all, so it was my cousin that called me and insisted that he has a person that he wants me to meet, and you're gonna love her. And I told you, and you get told it all the time, you're gonna love this person. She's gonna be your new best friend. I don't want a new best friend.
And then you go, thanks.
I can't even keep in touch with my new best friend.
Right.
My old best friends.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And I said, oh, thanks. Great. No, I mean it. He said. My cousin said, no, I mean it this time, Renee. Really? Well, how many times have I said this to you? Never. And he said her name is Rebecca Undum, and I'm like, okay. She's from Oaks, North Dakota, and she's going to be a speaker and a writer, and yeah, everyone is. I remember thinking, everyone that calls me is, yep. Mm-hmm. And how snotty of me. I mean, right? That's so snotty.
No, I think it's true, though.
I do get called a lot, and everyone's going to speak or a writer. That's
Right.
And can you help me? And,
Mm-hmm.
and then, and then I think you reached out to me. Did you reach out to me or did I reach out to you?
I reached out to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Right. And we talked on the phone.
Right.
Just once. And we didn't really get into anything.
Right.
I think it was, really pretty basic.
Pretty
didn't
basic.
know how you worked with people. I knew nothing about that.
Right.
And then we ended up sharing a stage together.
Right. And that was like magical.
Right. I was an MC.
Yep.
I was the MC for that event.
And I was the keynote speaker,
the
the morning,
stage.
main stage. And I remember watching you as an MC thinking, shit, she is the real deal. He's right.
Yeah.
And that was like, it changed. That was a golden moment for me. I remember that was, I think I sent you a note after, like, you're the real deal. Like you are, because I really am only interested in transparent, authentic.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of speakers that come, show up, get their paycheck, and then their green room, it has to have like, I don't know, 7 kinds of pop and this and that. And I've always told you my green room is a men's bathroom.
Yeah, right, like a face atomizer.
Right, yeah. Men's bathroom and, if possible, just like a glass of water. I don't need any fancy kind, just, tap water is good.
Yeah.
And, but I saw that you were the same. And that's not very common. And so right away, I just felt that sisterhood. I just automatically felt it. When you know, and like, whether that's God wink, intuition. I just knew that you were someone that I wanted to get to know and spend more time with. And I remember having to eat crow because I sent my cousin a text saying, Jed, you are so right. And he couldn't wait to go, nah. I told you so. Told you she's all that.
What was cool about you for me was that, so I'd been a trainer, right?
Correct.
And I didn't really know what I wanted. I wasn't sure what I thought it needed to be at that point. But you were one of the first speakers that I had seen on stage that was a storyteller. I mean, that was huge. It's a huge difference.
Right.
And like in no time, I was like bawling to like splitting.
Hopefully you laughed.
Laughing.
Hopefully
I
most
laughed
people
more
laugh.
than I cried.
Right.
Absolutely. But the fact that you could like evoke those emotions, and I have a quick emotion trigger. Let's be real. But you were so good.
And you're pregnant, right?
No, I wasn't. I was postpartum.
Oh, okay, good.
Brittany was a person already. But still, I remember just being like, oh my God. And of course, immediately the worthiness thing came up. Like, oh, I'm not qualified to do this at all. But then when you were the one that reached out to me at first, I was like, nice. Like, so she sees this in me. And of course, at that point, I thought maybe she says this to all the girls. Like, it's the same kind of thing, right? Like, you get all these calls, and I'm like, maybe she tells everybody they're awesome. I don't know.
No.
Right.
No.
So just so interesting how.
Mostly I just don't say anything.
Just smile and nod. Yeah.
That's
so
excellent.
So I remember being, and that when I get interviewed on podcasts, which is something I'm trying to do more of because it's really fun. It's like this, right? Just except I can't see you. This is more fun because I can touch you.
Back in the olden days when I used to do everything on TV, like you were in the green room, you were mic'd up, like it's. Yeah. This is a way better gig.
Isn't it? No, it's so easy.
I'm dating myself, but yeah.
It comes with me too.
Right. I love it.
Nice.
Love it. Love it.
So the worthiness stuff and the shift from being a trainer to being a speaker it's a big leap. Correct. And I tell people that story. I mean, I explain that trajectory because it's I feel like now a lot of people reach out to me that want to write books for one, which is super cool. And I love that. Right. Or they want to know how I became a speaker.
Correct.
And I'm like, you don't just become one. I mean, I worked with you for an entire year, like, and worked hard, worked stuff. And I just don't think, sometimes I don't think I give myself enough credit for the investment of time, of energy, of resources that I was serious about it, right? This whole thing of being a trainer where you've got PowerPoints and you've got context points, it's very different from telling a story.
Well, it's sort of like you got a little something to hold on to.
Right.
And I don't know, I don't know now, like from it's a little safer from the podium now, or like I've never used a note ever. I've never used a note in my life.
Yeah.
And people just can't believe that. But I think that's part of the extemporaneous. I mean, I'm very extemporaneous.
Mhm.
I mean, I stay on
Right.
task of what the mission and the goals are
I feel like I need to like
for
do
the
this.
event. Yeah. But it is vastly different. I mean, vastly. There's not even. And that's why the difference of pay, the difference of
Right.
the entertainment expectations. There's a lot more expectations if you're a keynote speaker. A lot more.
Right. And that was.
And there should be.
There should be. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just think sometimes it's been such a journey. And okay, so one of the things I wrote in the book was like, when I first saw you, I was like, well, and when we first talked on the phone, you like just flat out like owned it, like, yeah, I'm really funny. And I remember being like, wow, fancy pants. Like, I remember thinking like,
who does she think?
Well,
she is?
Who owns that? Who owns it like that, right? And not that I was put off by it, but it's just an acknowledgement of just like, wow, that seems very self-assured. But let's talk about why that is and how you why
in the context of why.
Right.
I just didn't go, hey,
it wasn't a
I'm super funny. Hey, I'm just super funny.
Right.
Hi, Rebecca, I'm super funny. The context is basically what sets you apart in the industry.
Absolutely.
Like, kind of how you get on the momentum of moving, or how do you make the shift from being, I think that was the first really, and that's really what you're trying to do. Make the shift from, trainer in a box
and training,
to keynote.
It's someone else's content.
Exactly. Right. And you were using, some trainers use their own content.
Well, so. For sure. You're right. Yeah. Not all trainers use proprietary content, but I always felt for me, like I had a flair of my own that I added to the content. And I always felt like that's what made me different.
But
and I was
when you're using other people's content, you're in a box, and there's only so much that you can lean into the box.
Right.
Where when you're a keynote and it's your own material, it's like live outside the box, more room to be yourself.
There's no box at all.
Right, no box.
You get rid of the damn box. And that's why
within the parameters of the client's box, but I mean,
that's why it's hard. That's why it's harder to make that shift, because you feel a little bit like you're not rudderless 100%, but the self-assuredness that you have comes from, and you said it to me kind of before we hit record here. How have you developed that over time? I mean, obviously it's practice. You've been at this gig for a long, long time.
Almost a quarter of a century.
No.
That's crazy,
you started
right?
when you were 7.
I was like 6, 7. I can't remember.
But what is it, do you think?
I think it's knowing that you're in your sweet spot, for one thing, that
you know where you belong.
Where I belong. I know what my purpose is. And, I think you have people running around the world to stay, like, climbing mountains and running to, it's awesome. People are going on these retreats with Sherpas to climb mountains to find their purpose. And, I've said it from an early age that, if you make a list over here of what you love to do, and over here, what are the gifts that God gave you? And if you intersected them, there's your purpose.
Right.
It's just not that complicated. I mean, it really isn't that complicated.
Right.
But a lot of times we don't lean into our gifts or what we're good at. We want to follow somebody else, and we want to follow their mold. We want to follow their model. We want to be like what they have.
So what you're telling me is nowhere in that set of lists was the set of lists of what do I think people will like.
Right. I said this is who I am.
Right.
That's every time I speak, though, I speak, whether it's 500 or 50 or 10,000 people, I am speaking to that audience, and I talk about myself in stories.
Yeah.
But truly, my message has nothing to do with me. It's about all of us collectively.
Right.
And they see themselves in my stories, and that's why they laugh till they pee.
Right.
Or cry, or because they see themselves in my story.
They cry because they peed.
Yeah, or they cry because they peed. Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons. But
I guess what I'm saying is like it's knowing who you are. And that's kind of been the theme of several of these little talk shows. But that's the theme of my book too, right?
I think knowing it is
I
think knowing it is one thing.
And then
I think what I told you is you know it.
Mm-hmm.
Now you need to own it
and lean into
and then step into it.
Right.
And you were kind of like a little bit of this. I mean, you were like so I also coach. That's what I do besides speaking, I coach speakers, and I take on pretty limited amount,
Right.
only the ones I can help, and because it's a lot of work, and I
Mhm.
say it right up front,
Mhm.
and I know the people that are going to lean into it, and I don't want to waste my time because it's so much time and energy for me.
Oh, I think anybody
And
that's done coaching, I get very invested
right,
in their success.
Right.
So yeah, I can
Right.
absolutely see that. And if you get them all the way there and they just, you can't drag them across
Right,
the finish
exactly,
line. It's just not
exactly.
how this works at all. So
But I mean, I think, but I know, I don't even think you were willing to step in, and I said, do you want to do this? Do you have the willingness? Like,
mhm,
there's one thing to have the willingness,
mhm.
but then you have to keep showing up. I mean, you
Yeah.
got to keep showing up, and you might have the willingness, and a lot of people have like the willingness to start, but they don't have the tenacity to finish.
So
And that's the
it's
difference.
having the dream versus working the dream.
Right.
Like it's gonna take work.
Well, it's going to take, what is it? You can have a dream and then you can have life. And the difference between the dream to living the dream is a plan.
Right.
And you need some type of roadmap to get there. You just don't all of a sudden show up and say, hey, I'm here to keynote that event for 10,000 people up in Las Vegas. Here I am. You know,
Right.
it just doesn't,
Right.
it's not how it works, you know?
But we can't expect, well, it's just, I think all of this is important because again, like so many of the women that will eventually watch this are going to be people that they have a dream or they have something that they want to pursue. And I feel like so many people quit before they ever even really started because it was harder than they expected it to be,
Mhm.
you know? And this is hard work. I mean, and that's the funny thing. I think if it looks easy, that's because you worked really hard at getting good at it.
Mhm.
Because speaking there's nothing easy about it.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I think also, I mean, for any entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur for, like I said, 25 years.
Since we were 6.
Yeah,
I think
since
that's
I
what we
was
decided,
6,
right?
yeah.
6.
I just think that you have to get the people that are going to be in your court to support you.
Mm-hmm.
And as an entrepreneur, and I told you this early on, don't look for approval from your friends and family. They want you to succeed. Friends and family want you to succeed for the most part. If there's a group of women, they may not. For a woman, that's a sad deal, but it's partly the truth, as you know.
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately, it's part of the truth. But it's to take people that are in your industry that are non-compete and have them look at what you're doing.
right.
Or what are your customers telling you and your clients? What are they telling you?
Mhm.
Don't look for approval over here
Right.
because you're never going to be whatever their dream was for you. This is your dream. This is Rebecca's dream
Right.
to step into.
Right.
They've already had their dreams,
Yeah.
and they get to keep dreaming and step into it anytime they want.
Mhm.
But this is your dream.
Well, and whatever their dreams, like family have, especially if it's parents or spouses, even
Of course.
they have dreams for
Exactly.
you
That's what I'm saying.
that are
Well,
potentially
think about for our kids,
right.
oh my gosh, and then they make choices that aren't like our
No.
dreams, and you're like, hello. It's not what. But you know what?
Yeah. But
we
ultimately,
raise them.
to
We
be
want
happy.
them to be.
Yeah,
We want them to be
happy.
independent and happy and fulfilled. I mean, I want my kids to have joy. You know, at the end of the day,
Right.
I want you to have joy. But part of the joy comes from doing what you were truly meant to do.
That's where I love the idea of let it be easy because okay, so there's just like yin and yang for me. I tend to try to force things in my world because I'm a control freak, right?
Right?
Did you know
Really?
Did you know that about me?
Whoa!
Revelations.
Stunning.
So I get the let it be easy from that standpoint, but I don't ever want people to think that if it's hard, it means you're on the wrong path, right?
Not at all.
That like resistance is futile thing. Yeah, no, I think sometimes resistance is in the form of a how bad do you really want this? It's a test.
Right.
Did I just spill my coffee? I did, right all over my
It's okay.
leg. I was sloshing. There's not even rum chata in this
do
coffee.
you need my designer cup right here with the chip in it?
Well, apparently I need a bigger cup
Right.
since I'm sloshing. But yeah, so my dad said that in the first episode too. Like it's the tough stuff that builds your character and builds your resilience, you know. And that's what chasing goals looks like. And I just don't think people talk about that enough, you know, because there again, it's a highlight reel. It's what you see on the outside. It looks so glamorous and lovely. Well, yeah, but there's a whole lot of background that's happening to make these things work.
I think that also that we're so It's such an instant gratification world right now to get
Right.
instant gratification, and you can go almost anywhere to get instant gratification. I mean, on
Mhm.
any social media, and oh my gosh, like how many people liked that, or how many people, and that we're looking for all of this affirmation and validation and affirmation all the time.
Mhm.
Scares me. And I think, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't know it exactly, but Theodore Roosevelt isn't he the one that said, it matters not to anyone what anyone out there says.
Oh,
It's when you go to the mirror and you look in the mirror
oh,
and
yeah.
that person looking back at you,
Yep.
that's what matters.
Yep.
And if you can stand in front of the mirror at the end of the day and said, hey, we did pretty good here today.
Right.
We worked the plan, we did the plan.
Mhm.
We're not worried about all these other people. I'm doing it in the best and honest way that I can, and I can look at myself in the mirror at night.
Right.
And say I was as real as I could be with people. I went all in. I gave it 300%.
Yeah.
I gave back. I was with my clients. I have a whole checklist. And if I can look myself in the mirror at the end of the day, I think that's enough validation for me that I know that what I've been fortunate to do as a speaker and an author and a coach and a consultant, I mean, my gosh,
Mhm.
that is like the best reward at the end of the day to know that that's my fit. I'm so glad I stepped into it because I almost didn't. I mean, and for years I didn't. There was years I didn't because I'm definitely not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not, I mean, right, who am I? And I think legitimately, I think most people go through that.
I do too.
I mean, I still catch myself doing it and I'm in my 50s, it's just, come on.
Right.
But I mean, that's human nature. I think that's just human nature.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you live on top of a mountain by yourself, you look at the mirror every day. You are awesome.
Yeah, look at how great you are. No.
Right.
So you're almost speaking to something that I think is really interesting. You said you have a checklist.
Mm-hmm.
So is it a daily checklist where
it's like a mental checklist?
Is it things you want to feel or things you want to do or both?
I mean, I
Like a
think for myself at the end of the day, not necessarily am I looking in the mirror. Your viewers are going to think I'm super vain. I'm not. But whether I'm laying in bed, I'm thinking to myself, who did I love today?
Mm-hmm.
Who could have I loved better? Did I hurt anyone today? Who did I hurt? Please forgive me. Or what do I need to do to make amends to that person? Let's say, oh my gosh, did I do the best I could at this?
Yeah.
How could I do that
Did I
different?
give my best?
Right. Did I give my best? Because as you know, it's one of my signature things. I want to be all in.
Right.
And everybody knows that about me. I want to be all in. When I'm in, I'm all in. Otherwise, I say no. My boundaries are pretty good.
Right.
The other thing, did I have my boundaries in place? Did I hurt anyone in trying to create a healthy boundary? Because sometimes, as you know, and I was pretty firm with you, I can remember this back then, you got to have boundaries, girl, because that person, there's only so many coffee dates you can have. Yeah.
Oh, Renee, that was one of the life-changing things that you...
Do you remember that? I can remember the first time, I'm kind of cracking up about it right now.
Well, and one of the friends that I had made through social media on Instagram just posted this 2 days ago. She said, coffee dates, are we good? Are we in? Are we out? Not to me personally, but just generally, just to see what people think. And there were certain people I take every coffee date. And I was just you were training me to be a good steward of my time.
Exactly.
And my energy,
your energy,
which I was really appreciative of because it's because I was directionless a little bit. Where it's just sure, I'll have coffee with you. And I made some great buddies, but what freaking good does that do to the goal or the dream?
Right.
Finding new people, making new friends. Yeah,
and you make friends easy. You're very likable. Everyone wants to be your friend. You're very likable.
Thank you. But you're welcome. It's not fruitful.
Right.
And so when there were so many things, and I think ultimately why I wanted to bring you on is because, well, first of all, this is so easy.
Right.
And we're in your office and we're working on stuff today. But I want people what would you say? I know what I would say. What would you say to anybody that's at the start of they're thinking about chasing that goal. Maybe they're who I was when I first reached out to you. What would you say to them? What do they need to know? What do people need to know to actually achieve the dream, whatever their dream might be? What do they need to know? Like the world according to Renee Rongen.
Oh my gosh, that definitely should never be. What they need to know. So let's just say it, like not even a speaker, like you're talking about an entrepreneur, like
Yeah, anybody, yeah, any entrepreneur,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, so we'll
Look,
think
I'm
about an
switching to
entrepreneur.
water. Look
Yeah, I have that too.
how smart I'm being.
I think any entrepreneur would, for sure, if they were looking to switch or looking to get on a certain path or open a business or change jobs, I would research the heck out of what it is you think you want to do. And what does their day-to-day life look like?
Right.
Because part of us has this, again, facade of if I do that job, that's what my life is going to look like.
Right.
But what's the back end? What's the back end part of that? Do I have to travel 99 days a year? And okay, is that part of it?
And,
what does that look
am
like?
I willing to do that?
And I'm willing to do that. And then I think you need to meet with the people that are in non-compete areas and kind of get what their life is like a little bit. And you can do plenty of that online and research. Just, but I'd pick a couple and have a candid conversation. And I wouldn't say, can I take, because I can tell you how many people, not very many people want to come to Fertile, Minnesota, because I live out in the country in the middle of nowhere and come to coffee. But you'd be surprised how many people say, I'll come to you.
Right.
And if I took everybody up on that, I would have no time for myself.
Right.
But I think it's up to me to give back also to people that I think have the highest potential. And so I do that. So if I was in your position, I would definitely find people that you want to emulate.
Right.
And I would bring them your best game of a presentation on you of why you want to meet with them.
Yeah.
Because those people, if they're the best in the industry, they get called a lot.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee that they take maybe a couple of them, and that's all the energy that they can do. Because again, they have a company to run, they have businesses to run, but they also want to give back. I want to have great speakers coming up.
Right.
I want that. So I think what you do is then you do the due diligence in meeting with someone. And if it's not, if you're here and you have the skill set, like you had timing, you have comedic timing, you have timing for transitions as a speaker, you're an excellent writer, you're creative. I can go down all the lists that you need that would fit the mold of an amazing speaker. You're extemporaneous, you have all these things. But if you don't know how to get from here to launch and that plan in between, and I'm not just saying it because I coach people, but you need someone to help you. Like if you were in a corporate organization, you would have people to go to say, hey, John Doe, I need you to help me. How do we do this process? Or how do we do this process? And people think, it's really expensive to get help for myself. But in the long run, what I love to say is when I work with speakers or writers in particular, is I feel like I'm taking you through 20 years of my learning curve, and I'm giving you the very best.
Right.
And it's going to save you so many thousands of dollars in the end, because I learned all the lessons. I paid for them.
Right.
I paid for every one of them.
Right.
And
to that point too, and I've said this before, there's two things. So remind me to come back to masterminds.
Sure.
I want to come back to that. Sure. But I've said this to people before that, like, when I went through the book editing process, I worked with the editor you recommended. She was wonderful. Editing is the hardest, like, I think it's the hardest part of writing the book.
Right.
Right? Because you feel really,
gotta go back and forth, feel like
really,
a big loser.
Yeah, and you feel passionate about something.
You're
and
so
she's
tied to
telling
it.
You've got to cut it, and you're like, I don't want to cut it.
Right.
And then, you get people that are like, well, just don't edit it then. Okay, biggest mistake ever.
Big mistake.
I'm just going to say that, like, anybody that has asked me, I always say, I'm like, I'm not a writing coach. I'm not writing myself out that way. And I just said, but that's like the one investment. When I invested in working with Carol, I did not just pay for her to edit my book. I invested in myself. It was like an education that I got. It wasn't just, and that's how I felt about working with you too, right? Like, so when you're working with people that are really good at what it is you want to do, you aren't just paying outright for their service.
It's a total experience.
It's education and it's growth for yourself. It's like personal
on a fast track
investment as well.
And on a fast track.
Because I haven't forgotten everything that Carol taught me about editing.
Mhm.
I think she's actually back here a lot when I'm writing other things now,
Right.
right? So I think that's something that people, they mistake that. And yes, it's expensive to a degree,
Mhm.
but let's like think about how fast you earn that money back. Like how many
Right.
books did I need to sell to
Right.
actually pay for
Right.
Carol's support?
Plus, I
And
think
it
coaches
just,
and consultants, and I mean, if you get a good one, I mean, there's like a dime a dozen too. Like you have to have the right one. It's like speakers.
yeah,
It's like
right,
it's like with anything. I mean, you have to do your due diligence and your
Mhm.
research and
Right.
check the references and the resources to make sure that they are what they say they are.
hmm
But on the other hand, they also are tied to amazing resources
right,
that you would have never.
right.
And
Found.
I could say, I mean, you could have spent 55 hours going through the editing, the proof, like all of that. And I could say, here's the best there is. And trust me, I've tried the 5,500 others.
Right,
And so it comes down to a pretty small list. And that's pretty valuable.
absolutely it is. Well, and that's just, so it's funny because when people, so I was saying people interview me on podcasts. There was a guy in that, I don't think it hasn't aired yet. So
Mhm.
he was asking me like how I became a speaker, right?
Mhm.
Like what did I do? And when at some point I was like, and I was Dale Carnegie, he said, "Oh, so you were already doing so," and you forget like it's the work.
Right.
So while we're
Right,
talking about
right.
preparation, right? We're talking about doing due diligence. We're talking about all of that. What about the flip side, which is over analyzing to the point of paralysis where you just don't freaking do anything?
At
Like
some
you're
point,
just
you
like,
take a
I'm
leap.
gonna go. I'm doing it. No, you're not. You're working on doing it. There's a huge difference, right, between laying the foundation and then doing.
Right.
So what have you seen that? Like almost like failure to launch? Where it's just
Where they've done all the work.
prep.
Well, I
But-
think everyone's waiting for perfection. I mean, the people that are doing that is once I get this right, then it's right. Once I get this right, well, the world is never right. I mean, and it's always right at the same time.
Yeah.
It's never right, and it's always right.
Yeah.
It's never perfect, but it's always perfect.
Mhm.
It's always perfectly
Yeah.
not perfect.
Right.
And
And
that's how our life is. It's perfectly not perfect.
that's something
And-
that's very hard for me to
Exactly.
lean into. But I
Ex-
didn't do that with this process.
right. Because you would have never done.
I never.
You would have never.
Mm-mm.
You would have never written the book. You would have
No.
never spoke. And at some point, you have to believe in here. Oh, I gotta believe when I tell you that you're good enough. You're gonna be amazing. Like you gotta jump.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
off the boat. Go.
Yep. And I just feel like that's this thing that makes me most sad when I see people just
Paralyzed. No, they're paralyzed.
by just the over analyzing.
Right.
Like and my friend Sarah, who's in my mastermind, and I want to talk about that because that's been a big thing for me in this last year because we're in a different. The world is just changing so fast.
Right.
It's crazy. And so how
So
do you
cool.
and how do I know how do you find that support when like and I'm super isolated too, just
Right.
geographically.
We both are. Yeah.
But she always said, you're never going to be dumber than you are right now about the thing that you're feeling dumb about. Like, recognize that there's a level of stupidity that we all have about whatever it is we don't know how to do.
Right.
That's because you don't know how. But
Right.
you learn. I never can stress that enough to people. Like, you
Learn
don't
how
know.
to do it.
Get into it.
Part of it being an entrepreneur
I know,
and
it's just
being a solo,
getting into
like
it.
a solopreneur or
Mhm.
entrepreneur is you don't have the luxury of having resources, meaning cash and or people,
right.
and you have to learn to do it. And that's also a great thing. Like just
I know.
think about what you're learning and how you had said from Sarah from your mastermind, which
Mhm.
is mastermind, and you probably talked about it on here, is that, it's like people that get together, whether it's like virtually or in person, and now it's getting so much more popular to do it via Zoom or virtually.
Right, that's how
the
we
world
meet.
has made it
Yeah.
an amazing place, and so you have like thinkers and not like thinkers,
Right.
but that will aid you in getting from A to B to C if you have the plan and they know what your plan is.
Yeah.
But it's that vulnerability of sharing
Yeah.
who you are and coming as your true authentic self, I think, to the table of the mastermind group
Yeah.
so that they can best help you.
Yeah.
They
You
can't
can't
best help you.
if you're putting up a big
Exactly.
wall of bullshit.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's, it's what I said at the very beginning, is coming as your true self. Am I coming as, the real deal Renee? Am I coming
Right.
as,
Right. Real deal, Renee.
I mean, am I coming as that? And it sounds kind of, what's the word? It sounds kind of like very
Cliche.
vain when I say it like
Oh,
that, but
yeah.
I'm just saying that when I show up as me, as the authentic Renee, and I come with that I'm going to bring you something to the mastermind group. I'm coming
Right.
to help work on you and give you ideas because I have all this in my mind where someone else over here has all this. Oh my gosh. And when you all come together collaboratively, it is
incredible.
amazing.
It's incredible. And for me, so the mastermind that I've been a part of, it's Kick-Ass Masterminds. That's the company.
Love
so
it.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying it, give them a little plug for
Right.
Sarah's company. She was so diligent about curating our group that it's like the women that are in there with me, they happen to all be women in my group. They're like soul sisters, and yet we're in all sorts of different
Right.
businesses and stuff, but they're just this nice support that I always can come to, and they get me.
Mm-hmm.
They get me. And then, like you said, there's no place in a group like that, or in a coaching situation, or in working with clients. Really, I kind of feel like this is just a life thing. If you want to get the best out of your experiences, the people in your life, the opportunities, it's coming as you are.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing
Mostly about naked.
always, I know, and I feel like our story, like our origin story, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of what the chapter that's gonna, go
Exactly.
up with this episode. There was so much about it where we both originally, we had those moments of like, like on the phone where you're like, I don't need more friends, and I was like, oh, she doesn't want more clients, and then we came together in an authentic way because we were both doing our thing.
Right.
Exactly. And you got to see me for who I was. I got
Right.
to see you for who you were, and then it was like, oh, we do belong.
I probably
together.
could have had a little more tact.
You were not lacking in tact at all. You were very non-committal. So we're like putting out your stuff on the table. So remember that's when I said it. I was like, so like, do you take on coaching clients? Because I didn't really know. And you were like, you were kind of like, meh. And I thought, oh, maybe she doesn't want new clients. And
well, I was filling you out to see if I wanted you as a client.
Like,
that was what I was doing.
You were like, no, I only take people on that are really serious because my job's to hold your toes to the fire. I mean, that's what you said right out. So it was fun because this gave us the opportunity to just be who we really were, right? Like,
right.
I was an MC, I had a job to do. I was doing my job, and you were watching me do my job.
Right.
And I with you.
And, right.
So there wasn't any facade happening because we were doing our thing.
Right.
But I just think that's what so much of what I try to talk to women about is about how to show up. Like, as you
don't try to be someone else. Like,
we
are also amazingly, beautifully unique.
Right.
I mean, I talk to girls all the time, young girls.
Yes.
Like, is my, now that I'm getting older and my kids are all raised, and I want to raise really healthy girls and boys too. I mean, both. Yeah. But I want them to be emotionally equipped, like and feel good about saying no or yes, and about commitment and about giving back, about many different things, but about them setting healthy boundaries. And it's not about, no, I'm not going to do that. No, it's about boundaries of, again, where am I going to spend my energy to get the best return on this great big full life? Right.
Just being stewards of the gifts we've been given.
Right.
Too.
Exactly.
That there's
don't take them for granted.
Don't want to make it all like heavy, but there's a responsibility that comes with the unique and special gifts that we've each been given. And so there's something very beautiful to be found when you stay in the lane of it. And I, meeting you were one of the major influencers in what I've become as a woman. I'm so grateful for you.
Bring it in, girl.
Oh, I'm so grateful.
Oh.
But I think we have wheelie chairs.
I know we have wheelie chairs. Who does this?
Right over here.
But I think that, when I go on stage and if they won't use this in my intro, which has only happened, I think, maybe
I said this in your intro
3 times.
Can I say it?
Yeah.
That you want to, when you die, it's not maybe when you die, but I'm paraphrasing.
No.
But the whole concept is that you want to come to the pearly gates and say, I come to you empty. I get teary. That I've used everything you've given me. Right?
Yep, my goal at the end of my life is to say, come to you empty. I've got nothing left.
Yep.
Nothing. I've used every single gift that you gave me. And
I said that. That's how I introduced you. That was before you
Like
spoke,
that.
before I knew, who you really were. And I remember when I had to read it, I had to read it off of
Yeah.
a sheet. And I remember thinking, like, that's how I want to live. From birth. And that's my book. That's what the book is about, too. It's
It truly is.
looking for those moments. There were moments all along the way.
So I think we need those experiences. That's what I'm saying about young kids. Like, we got them on a fast track, or we got them in college and high school, which, okay, all great and fine. But by the time they graduate, they're a junior in college, which financially, I get this. This makes total sense. But there's no room if, like I look at my daughter in nursing. Well, she had to be on this track right now.
Right.
Boom. Or
Right.
she has to be on this track. I mean, you can't even go to basket weaving. You can't even do basket weaving. Just to see if you're a good weaver.
That's why my dedication to my kids was that I hope they have the courage to make their own paths
Right.
and to wander.
Right.
Just allow yourself a little bit of wandering. And I get that from a parental standpoint. Wandering post high school is very expensive.
Right.
But I don't know. I guess the biggest thing is, like, the big highlights here. Several things, right? When it comes to, I think a lot of people have dreams on their hearts to do
a lot
of things. Like,
oh my gosh, amazing things.
And just, like, don't be so afraid to try.
Right.
Don't be so afraid. Because the things you're going to learn about yourself, you'll discover things about yourself that you
And the
didn't
plan will
know.
never be right. It'll never be completely done. You need a plan so that, what's the fallback plan, or how do I at least get from let's just get from A to M.
Yeah.
M to Z can be a total surprise, and we'll navigate along the way.
Yeah.
And it's that theory again that as you're doing it, all who wander are not lost either.
Yeah.
That part of it is in the wandering that we get to Z.
Right.
And there's something to be said for that, because that's that creative piece that most people don't allow themselves to do. And
it's like a plan with space in the margins, right? Like, there's a plan,
right,
but it's a loose plan,
right,
and there's room in there for you to discover.
It's like being on stage. I know what I'm going to say, but I know based on my audience, I obviously have done the research on my client. I do a lot of research on clients, but I know I'm going to be darn funny, and I'm going to pull them in. But I never know exactly if they told me to type out what, and I've had clients say, "Can you type out your keynote?" No,
right?
No, I can't even think it in my head. Because it comes to me in the showers, like, or in different places, or driving, or anywhere.
Well, and sometimes it's something that happens in the moment that triggers.
Which is the best part, because it's like real time.
That's what
real time.
I love so much.
Right. And that's what I'm known for, is like to put a bow around a conference or something, because I go in, I'm like a voyeur, and I like, it's like I've been there the whole time. And that's fun. I love that. I do love that, because you get to use all your skill set. I love that.
Right.
Love it.
Well, like I've already said, I'm eternally grateful to have you in my corner.
And you have been one of the greatest blessings in my life. I'm glad I said yes.
I'm so glad.
I'm glad my cousin wore me down. I'm glad he wore me down a little.
Right.
I'm going to be a little more keen at listening. I need to be a little more keen at, like, not shutting people down. But
you didn't shut me down. It was just honest. And that's why I just knew we were meant to work together, because at some point I was like, oh yeah, she sees me now. Look at that.
And the cool part is that we work together as client coach, and then as colleague speakers, and now you do, work with me, speaking, taking a bunch of my events, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And now we're going to be jumping off together. Where we think together we're better.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
And we're just putting the plans in place for that, and
it's going to be so fun.
I'm so excited. Like, that's the next part of my journey. That's kind of my last chapter of speaking, and you and I get to have you on my last chapter in the speaking world, because that's exciting to me. Yeah, and I can't think of anyone else that I would do it with. I really can't. I really can't.
These people have no idea what they're in for.
I know. Oh, I love you.
I love you.